to Mission 360, where we connect you to frontline missionaries.
4 times a year, a unique event takes place in Seventh-day Adventist churches around the globe. On the last Sabbath of each quarter, members offer a special gift. This offering goes to help a designated part of the world, and we call it the 13th Sabbath offering.
The offering benefits select projects and institutions, but this isn't just about projects or buildings. It's about people whose lives are changed as they come in contact with missionaries who love Jesus.
And that's why we support the 13th Sabbath offering. This quarter, we are sending our gifts to the West African region. Let's visit one of the projects you are supporting.
Parakou is the largest city in eastern Benin. It lies in the heart of this West African country. With a population of 206,000, it boasts a number of international markets and industries. Although this may sound glamorous, Parakou is a developing city where people work hard to live. When you visit Parakou, you can taste a delicious Beninese dish called agu, or pounded yam. To prepare this local dish, you will need to peel cassava root and chop it into thin pieces. Then, the secret is to pound it on the mortar until you get a soft and gooey dough. Trust me, it's not as easy as it looks. But once finished, the Beninese will eat it with a spicy soup, and it's a great feast. Parakou is home to a number of international cultures. The Grand Aziki Market is the place to go if you want to shop for foreign goods. Here, there are all kinds of merchandise from neighboring countries. The subdivisions of Parakou are governed by a tribal system. This means that these communities have wise men and a chief that supervises the local activities. The village chief looks after the well-being of his people and strives for community development and distinction. The governing chiefs know that the future of their villages rests on the shoulders of the little ones. The children here are plentiful, and there is great concern for their education. These precious children are full of potential. To them is entrusted the responsibility of a brighter and better future for their families and their country. But how can the children accomplish much when it's very challenging to get an education? One visionary village chief opened the doors of his community. This chief welcomed the Seventh-day Adventist Church to invest in Parakou.
The school is very important here. It will assist our children to help develop our community. The children who go to school will be our leaders to bring progress to our people.
The chief strongly believes in education and even donated land to build a school. This wise chief is passionate about giving the children good opportunities in life. The school construction has begun. With your support, the new Seventh-day Adventist School will soon open doors. Can you imagine what a tremendous impact the school will have? Currently, the community children have to travel very far to attend school. It can be dangerous to walk to school on the road, and the parents worry about their youngsters. Seventh-day Adventist children will especially benefit from a church-owned and operated institution. For every week, Adventist kids are faced with a hard decision. Other schools offer many courses on Sabbath, and the Adventist children are constantly penalized for their absence.
My parents have no options to take me out of this school. I have no choice. I have to like this school.
Children like this young man put on their best face each school day. But there can be a better way. With your prayers and support, construction of Benin's first ever Seventh-day Adventist school will educate many precious minds for this life and for eternity.
What a wise chief! Can you believe he donated land to build a Seventh-day Adventist school?
I know, right? This is just the beginning of our program. Let's continue our talk on education. Martin Doublemeyer, who is an award-winning filmmaker, joins us in the studio. He brings his new film called The Blueprint.
This is his third documentary on Seventh-day Adventists, and it focuses on Adventist education in North America.
Martin Doublemeyer, what a privilege to have you back on our program. You have made almost a life commitment, a life work of looking at faith-based activities around the world. And as Adventists, we've been under your scrutiny a little bit in recent years. Tell us a little bit about the background to the first documentary you did on Adventists.
Well, the first one was called The Adventists, and it was really a look at Seventh-day Adventist and that connection between the religion and health. What Adventists say is the health ministry, the health outreach. And I found it a fascinating story. I brought it to public television. I said, here's a community of people, about 1 million people in the United States, who are living 7 to 10 years longer than everybody else, and that immediately got their attention. But I think what we could do, we're not a health program. We're not a health production company. We do films on religion and faith and spirituality. So the dimension that we could bring was to say not only are Adventists living longer and building these wonderful hospitals and medical facilities, they're doing it out of a basic understanding and a commitment that the body is the temple of God. And that becomes the central foundational rubric for everything. And when we showed that film on public television, the response was terrific, and that's now led to the Adventist 2, which is a look at Adventist hospitals and missions all around the world. And now the third film is on Adventist education.
Now this latest film, called The Blueprint, in this you go and visit Adventist school all around the United States. What did you find?
Well, I found a really different school system. People had said to me, when I was traveling around the country, Gary, with the first film, people would say, would you ever think about doing a film about Adventist education? And that's where the idea came. And people were proud of the education system that's fostered over these last century plus in the Adventist Church. And they wanted me to hear about that. And so when we looked into it, we thought this is a great story. It's a great story. You know, ultimately, a good documentary has to be fundamentally a good story. And we found great schools, great characters, great principals, great students. So you see a system that's small, but it has the opportunity in its smallness to really make personal connections with people, to really get into the fabric of each one of these children and to really shape their lives. I mean, ultimately, people care a lot about religion. They care deeply, and they care deeply about how their faith can be translated and transmitted to the next generation. So the schools become the place you can do that all day long and give people an opportunity and experience of faith that they wouldn't get if they weren't in public schools, And to me, I made the commitment that I was going to tell this story on Adventist education, not by pushing down public education in order to raise Adventist education up, but to simply say there are great people in public schools, in public education, doing great work, but in Adventist education, in faith-based education, you have an opportunity to get to a different dimension of that child. If it's body, mind, and spirit, that spiritual dimension really is a place that is the breaking point for a lot of public education policy. And for us, we felt as though talking about Adventist education and raising that question of spirituality and the understanding that we are created by God, that can happen in an Adventist school.
Now, in North America, there are also other church-based education systems. Was there anything unique that attracted you to looking at the Adventist system?
Well, of course, Adventist education is newer, it's younger than, say, Catholic education. Certainly by numbers, Catholic education is much larger. But I think there's something really wonderful about the smallness. We were in schools the entire school was 9 and 10 kids.
Right.
And a lot of people told me that was their own experience in growing up in Adventist education. I am not an Adventist, but I am the product of all those years of faith-based education. I went through Catholic school, and in 5th grade I had 70 kids in my classroom. And there's a totally different dynamic when you have one teacher and 70 kids in a 6th grade class. And then you have one teacher for 4, 5, 7, 10 kids in that particular class. I think you're able to really understand who that child is at the deepest level, touch them in a totally different way. And I think that's the real magic of Adventist education.
Now, you saw a variety of schools. I mean, you were inner city New York, you were rural schools. Tell me a little bit about the variety that you saw.
Well, actually, the first area that we filmed in was the Bronx. And one of the things that kids who go to the school in the Bronx have to think about is just the basic safety of the children, just getting to the school every day. You know, Adventists don't, because they're a private school system, the whole notion of getting the kids to the school, you don't have the advantage of public transportation, public bus system. So the whole notion of the kids getting there safely, there's been a lot of issues on the streets in the Bronx for these kids. But every one of the kids in the Seventh-day Adventist school have been safe. That's one of the things that they're most proud of. We went from there to Holbrook Academy out in Arizona with the Navajo reservations, and to Colorado, where we saw a program where they're actually teaching nature. They're using nature, the surroundings of the Rocky Mountains and all that they have available to them to connect God and the sense of child and growing up as a child and a product of God, a creation of God. So these are this is the kind of connectedness that we saw in each one of these schools. Different, and yet at the bottom of all of it was the notion that God had created these children, and we have an obligation to teach these children in a sacred space. I think one of the questions is, what's the difference between, four walls in a classroom and an Adventist classroom? And I really do believe when you start the school day by asking God to come into that space, you create essentially a sacred space. When you see the child not as just citizen, but as a creation of God, you teach that child differently. And when you see knowledge as a sacred trust, all of it changes the way you operate your educational systems.
Well, as the product of Adventist schools and with a daughter in an Adventist school, you're preaching to the converted to me. But for those who are interested in learning more, seeing the documentary, how do they go about that?
Well, this film, The Blueprint, will be going to public television in spring of 2004.
In the United States?
Throughout the United States, yes. And all the schools that we profile are in the U.S.
And what is your website, Martin?
It's www.journeyfilms.com, JOURNEYFILMS. And we're continuing now to load it up with all the information and little clips that we take from the film. So we're starting to build an audience. We have a Facebook page for the Adventists that we're using now, too. So we're trying to get the word out about the film.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you talking with us.
Education is a very important topic. This quarter, you have a chance to support the building and expansion of schools in Benin and Senegal. It's easy. Just visit AdventistMission.org.
Up next, we'll visit the beautiful schools de Soleil in Senegal and talk about the Adventist educational systems right here in North America. All of this after a short break.
Welcome back to Mission 360. Today we are talking about the 13th Sabbath offering. This quarter, your offering will benefit schools in the countries of Benin and Senegal.
But before we visit the School de Soleil in Dakar, Senegal, let's talk with Pastor Shane Anderson, author of How to Kill Adventist Education and How to Give It a Fighting Chance.
Pastor Shane Anderson, thank you for joining us today. You wrote a book on Adventist education. What led you to write that book?
I grew up going through Adventist schools myself, and it was a transformative experience. Going through Adventist schools gave me a second home. It introduced me to an understanding of life that was rooted in the Word of God. And as I got older and noticed that some schools, some places were not necessarily able to always deliver that experience, I wanted to do what I could to help to change that. And that's where the book came from.
And for those who have not read the book, but will after this interview, what's the name of the book?
It's called How to Kill Adventist Education.
Okay,
and it has a subtitle, blessedly, and How to Give It a Fighting Chance.
Okay, I like that part.
Yes, yes.
So what are the main principles that you think that are vital to Adventist education?
At the root of Adventist education is an understanding of the holistic nature of man, of humankind. We believe that we're made in the image of God, Genesis chapter 1 and 2. That understanding has huge implications. And because our school system is based on that understanding, and because the mental, the social, the physical, and the spiritual are all wound up in one, the way that God created us, how you educate somebody, if you believe that, is often quite different from perhaps another educational system that may only focus on one particular facet of humanity. Understanding that holistic approach to student development is integral to Adventist education.
What are some of the dangers facing Adventist education?
Boy, I think probably funding is one that certainly comes up first for most people's minds. There are some countries where Adventist education is funded by the government, and there they may not have as many funding challenges. In much of the developed world, that is not the case, and we rely on private funding. I think probably one of the biggest challenges is helping to get the word out of the extremely high quality education that we offer. Oddly enough, there are many people that don't understand that we have an Adventist school system. It's the largest Protestant school system in the world, and that the product we deliver is extremely high quality. And sometimes we struggle to get that word out, but we're trying to change that.
Yeah. Now, you're a pastor. How important is the Adventist school, in your view, to the community where you're working?
To the wider community where we live?
Yes.
Oh, it has been a blessing, I believe, to our wider community in so many different ways. For one, I think we provide a very a positive, if I can put it this way, a moral anchor in the community. It's not that our town is wildly immoral or something like that, but nonetheless, the people in our community know that we are God-fearing people that have based our lifestyles on the Word of God. And because there are hundreds of us there, they respect us. They're glad to call us neighbors, and we're glad to call them our neighbors. We provide services for the community. We have students that rake leaves and lawns, that go door to door. We really do try to be a light in that community, and by the grace of God, I think they're blessed to have us there, by their own admission, and many, many, many have told me that.
Now, as a pastor, you've got parishioners to care for, you have different outreach programs. Why are you so involved in school?
It is one of the most effective means I know of helping a young person be established in God. It is an extremely effective means to an end. What I do in my home with my own children is extended in the school throughout the rest of the day. There are a few places on earth where you can go and have your child under caring teachers that believe in God, that want to develop the entire child. I'm honored to be able to place my child in that environment.
Yeah, because you want, as you say, what you're doing at home to be continued, not undermined.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Adventist education does an excellent job of doing that because, again, we believe we're made in the image of God. And so we need to restore, we need to go about this work of restoration, of bringing people back as close as possible to the character of God, to the heart of God, serving our fellow man, and ultimately serving God.
Shane, can you share a story of a child whose life has been changed through the Adventist school system?
In addition to my own, I assume you mean. Yes, yes. Mine certainly has been. I certainly would not be sitting here today had my mother not sacrificed to put me through school. We could go on a long time telling other stories. I think of one person a student at the academy. They came with essentially zero understanding of God. They claimed atheism. By the time they graduated, I think they were there for 3 years, I don't think it was for the full 4, they were a believer in God and fully were organizing their life along the principles from the Bible. Just a tremendous transformation. And the hope that gleamed in that student's eye was not there when they arrived, but when they left it was.
And that kind of makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
How do you work as a pastor? How do you work in your local school? Do you take a chaplaincy role, or you just take an interest as the local pastor and as a parent?
We have 2 schools on our campus. There's a kindergarten through 8th grade elementary school, and then there's a high school, a boarding school there. And my biggest ministry is a ministry of presence. To be able to be there with the students, eating with them in the cafeteria or playing games with them out in the sports field or in the gymnasium, or simply just being with them. Recently I took a trip with 2 of the students. We spent probably about 2 hours or so in the car together driving to an event. And it was just a great time to be able to share personal spiritual stories and to provide spiritual guidance. That type of ministry for me is at the top of my list of things to do with our schools.
Fantastic. Shane, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today and reminding us of the wonderful gift of Adventist education.
Thank you for having me.
This quarter, your 13th Sabbath offering will benefit children in Benin and Senegal. These 2 places were carefully selected to receive assistance to build and expand their current buildings.
Let's visit one of these schools. This school is acting as a center of positive influence in its community. So let's travel all the way to the city of Dakar. Are you ready?
J'aimerais devenir un médecin, un docteur, un footballeur, un dentiste.
You have just met the prospective workforce of Dakar, Senegal. The children here at Claire Solil have big dreams for the future. Their parents place them on a Christian campus so they can learn their subjects well, but also important principles and moral values. The professors here strive for a friendly and personable atmosphere. They value each student as a precious child of God. The staff at Claire joyfully begins the day with singing. Through songs, the children learn important Bible stories like David and Goliath, Abraham, Zacchaeus, and others. This Seventh-day Adventist school in the heart of Dakar welcomes Adventists, Catholics, Muslims, and students of many other faith groups. In fact, only 14% of the students here are Christians. The parents appreciate the standards Adventists uphold as people, and they are happy to bring their children to a school that offers strong moral values, health education, love, and respect for others.
Very often, parents come here to say, my children has changed a lot, because when he was in other school, he used to be cursing people, insulting them. But now, when he has come here, he has changed because he has become a very good boy, a very good girl.
Meet Jean-Paul. He is a student at Claire Solil. When Jean-Paul was little, a disease called polio crippled him. The disease left his legs too weak to hold him, and now he's unable to walk. He must use a wheelchair to get around. You see, many schools in Dakar rejected Jean-Paul, and the kids constantly avoided him. But when he came to Claire, this sad story changed for good. Here, Jean-Paul has learned to love and appreciate the student family. He finds the school to be a place of acceptance and equality. At recess, the children hurry to the school court. Jean-Paul is part of the group here. He plays in their soccer team. He loves soccer, and he is a good goalie, too. The teachers like Jean-Paul, and they include him in every activity the other kids do.
I like all my teachers and friends. I'm very happy to be here.
There is no better feeling than to belong. When recess is over, the children at Claire head back to classes. They are eager for an opportunity to grow and improve their life. Here, students have a chance to learn computers, music, geography, math, crafts, literature, physical education, and many other subjects. Some of the students enjoy school so much that they are worried about the next year. Claire Solil offers kindergarten and some primary classes. There's a great need to expand the current space and add more grades so the older children can come back next year to continue their education. The surrounding area is nicely built up, and the school wants to add a second floor to this building to provide more room for the students to learn. Your 13th Sabbath offering this quarter will go to build Benin's first Seventh-day Adventist school. It will also add more classes to the current kindergarten and primary school in Dakar, and your offering will purchase books for the children to read in their own language. Please pray and support the mission of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We hope you are enjoying Mission 360. If you have been listening carefully and would like to contribute to the projects you have seen today, you don't have to wait until the 13th Sabbath.
That's right. You can visit AdventistMission.org anytime and send your gift online. The web address is on your screen.
We're going to take another short break, but don't go away. Gary Krause will be back with some final thoughts.
In his second letter to the Corinthians, the Apostle Paul writes, "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." These are powerful words because we live in a world today where the reverse is true, where we are focused so much on what we can see, hear, touch, and experience. And the media pushes us in this direction. It keeps focusing on, you need a bigger car, you need a better quality house, you need this type of holiday, whatever it is. And the emphasis is to focus on the things of this world. It reminds me of that wonderful book, The Pilgrim's Progress, where the pilgrims are heading for the celestial city and they have to go through a town called Vanity. And as they go through Vanity, there's a carnival, a fair. And as they go through, they're not interested in anything. They won't buy anything. And the vendors get angry with them and then they end up beating them and throwing them into jail. because they didn't fit in. And as you read there, you'll see that they looked different, they had different interests, and this really annoyed the vendors. And finally, one of them said to them, "What will you buy?" And the reply was, "We will buy the truth." So in our mission, as Christians, our mission is to remind people that this world is not all there is, that what we see is not the final reality, because the things that are unseen are the most important. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on Mission 360. It's a pleasure and a privilege to talk about mission that's happening around the world. And if you want to find out more about Adventist Mission, please visit our website at adventistmission.org, or you can call us in North America on 1-800-648-5824. Well, until next time, I'm Gary Krause for Adventist Mission, and I hope you can join me right here next time on Mission 360.